The Richest Man in Babylon, Part 1, The Secret of the Wealthy. In the history of the Old World, there was no city more glorious than Babylon. It was the very symbol of wealth and splendor. Its name conjured visions of gold and jewels, of massive walls and hanging gardens that defied the laws of nature. It was a city of merchants and priests, of kings and slaves, all living together under the baking heat of the desert sun. But Babylon was not a city of equality. It was a place where the dazzling wealth of the few stood in stark contrast to the desperate poverty of the many. In the shadow of the royal palaces, men worked from dawn until dusk, their bodies slick with sweat, their hands rough with labor, yet their purses remained empty. Our story begins not in a palace, but in the humble district of the artisans. Bansir, the chariot builder, sat upon the low wall surrounding his property. He was a man of broad shoulders and strong arms, accustomed to the heavy work of shaping wood and bending iron. But today his tools lay silent in the dust. The unfinished body of a chariot sat in the center of his courtyard, waiting for the wheels to be fitted, but Bansir made no move to touch it. He stared blankly at his modest home and the open workshop behind it. The sun was high and fierce, baking the clay walls, but his mind was clouded with a heavy gloom. He had worked for 20 years. He had built the finest chariots in the district. He had been honest and diligent, and yet he had nothing. From the street, the sound of a familiar melody drifted toward him. It was the strumming of a lyre. A moment later, a smiling face appeared at the gate. It was Kobbi, the musician, an old friend of his youth. Kobbi bowed with an exaggerated flourish. "The gods bless you with great generosity, my friend," he said cheerfully. "I see you do not labor today, which means the gods have already filled your purse to overflowing. Since you are so wealthy that you can rest while others work, perhaps you could lend a friend just 2 humble shekels until the feast of the nobleman tonight?" Bansir let out a short, bitter laugh. He did not move from the wall. "If I had 2 shekels," he said quietly, "I would not lend them to you. I would not lend them to anyone, for they would be my entire fortune. They would be my only protection against the hunger that waits at the door." Kobbi stopped playing his lyre. The smile faded from his face. "You have nothing?" he asked. "Not even 2 shekels? But how can you sit here like a statue when the chariot stands unfinished? If you do not work, you do not eat." Bansir looked up at the sky. "I have been dreaming," he confessed. "I had a dream that I was a man of means. I dreamed that my belt was heavy with gold pieces. I dreamed that I tossed silver to the beggars without a second thought. I felt the weight of wealth, and it made me stand tall. It made me feel like a free man. But then I woke up, and I remembered that my purse is empty, and a rebellion has grown in my heart." He looked at his friend with intense eyes. "Why is it, Kobbi? Why do we have nothing? We are not lazy. We are not stupid. We have worked since we were boys. We have built the finest chariots. You have played the sweetest music. We have honored the gods. And yet, look at us. We live hand to mouth. We scrape for every copper coin. Is this all there is? Is it the will of the gods that we should live and die like slaves?" Kobbi sat down on the wall beside him. He sighed, looking at his worn sandals. "I do not know the answer," he said. "I am no better off than you. The money I earn from my music is gone as quickly as it comes. My family is hungry. I often have to play until my fingers bleed just to buy a loaf of bread. But there is one man who is different." Bansir nodded. "You speak of Arkad." "Arkad," Kobbi repeated, reverently. "The man they call the richest man in Babylon." The 2 friends sat in silence for a moment, thinking of the man who had grown up with them in these very streets. Arkad had been no different from them. He was not the son of a king. He was not blessed with supernatural strength or intelligence. He had played in the same dust, studied under the same teachers, and started with the same empty pockets. And yet today, Arkad rode in a golden chariot. He had so much gold that even the king sought his help in affairs of the treasury. He was generous to his family and to the poor, yet his wealth grew faster than he could spend it. "If he were here," Bansir grumbled, "I might be tempted to throttle him just to see if gold coins would spill from his pockets." "We cannot hate him," Kobbi said gently, "for he has succeeded where we have failed. Perhaps instead of envying him, we should ask him how he did it." Bansir's eyes widened. A spark of hope returned to his face. "Ask him," he whispered. "Yes. Why have we never thought of that? We have been trying to solve the riddle of wealth on our own, and we have failed. But Arkad knows the answer. He has found the secret path. Do you think he would tell us?" "He is our friend," Kobbi said. "He has never forgotten us. Let us go to him. Let us go today. Let us drag our weary bodies to the hall of learning and ask Arkad for the wisdom that is worth more than gold." And so the two friends set out through the winding streets of Babylon. As they walked, they were joined by others, a butcher, a soldier, and a rug weaver, men who were also tired of the endless struggle. Together, a small group of seekers, they made their way to the grand house of Arkad. Arkad welcomed them. He was a man of 70 years, yet his back was straight and his eyes were sharp. He did not turn them away. He did not mock their poverty. He invited them into his great hall, where the air was cool and smelled of jasmine and expensive incense. Servants brought them cold water and sweet dates. Arkad sat before them, a picture of calm dignity. "What brings you to the home of your old friend?" he asked. It was Bansir who spoke first. "Arkad," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "we have come because we are confused. We wrestled in the games as boys. We studied in the same school. We have worked as hard as you, and that you have become a man of unlimited wealth, while we struggle to feed our families. Why has fate singled you out to enjoy all the good things of life, while we are ignored?" Arkad looked at the faces of the men he had known since childhood. He smiled, but there was no mockery in it. It was a smile of understanding. "If you have not acquired more than a bare existence since we were boys, it is because you have failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you have observed them, but not followed them." The room went silent. The laws of wealth? Did such things exist? Arkad leaned forward. "I will tell you my story. When I was a young man, I was a scribe in the Hall of Records. I labored every day, carving words into clay tablets for a few copper coins. I had nothing. I wanted the fine things I saw in the market, but I could not afford them. One day, Algamish, the moneylender, came to the Hall of Records. He was a rich and powerful man. He ordered a copy of the 9th law, and he said it must be ready in 2 days. I worked hard, but the law was long, and when Algamish returned, the tablet was unfinished. He was angry. He shouted at me, but I was bold. I looked him in the eye and said, 'Algamish, you are a very rich man. Tell me how I may also become rich, and I will carve this clay all night long. I will not sleep until the sun rises, and your tablet will be finished.' Algamish laughed. He liked my boldness. He agreed to the deal. And so I worked. I carved the clay while my back ached, and the smell of the burning wick made my head spin. But when the sun rose, the tablet was finished. Algamish returned. He looked at the work and smiled. 'You have fulfilled your part of the bargain, my son,' he said. 'Now I am ready to fulfill mine. Listen closely, for what I am about to tell you is the seed from which the tree of wealth grows.' I leaned in, hungry for the secret. I expected a long, complex formula. I expected a map to a hidden treasure. Algamish looked at me and said only this: 'I found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep, and so will you.' He stared at me and I stared at him. 'Is that all?' I asked. 'That was sufficient to change the heart of a sheepherder into the heart of a moneylender,' he replied. 'But all that I earn is mine to keep, is it not?' I demanded.
'Far from it,' Algamish laughed. 'Do you not pay the garment maker? Do you not pay the sandal maker? Do you not pay for the things you eat? Can you live in Babylon without spending? You pay everyone but yourself. You labor for others. You are like a slave who works only for his master's food and clothing. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you kept for yourself 1/10 of all you earn, how much would you have in 10 years? My mind did the math. As much as I earn in 1 year, I answered. You speak but half the truth, he corrected. For every gold piece you save is a slave to work for you. Every copper it earns is its child that also can earn for you. If you would become wealthy, then what you save must earn, and its children must earn, and its children's children must earn, that all may help to give you the abundance you crave. He stood up and gathered his tablets. You think I cheat you, he said. You think this is too simple, but I am paying you 1,000 times over for your night's work. Truth is always simple. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. It should be not less than 1/10, no matter how little you earn. It can be as much more as you can afford. Pay yourself first. Do not buy from the garment maker and the sandal maker more than you can pay out of the rest, and still have enough for food and charity and penance to the gods. Wealth, like a tree, grows from a tiny seed. The first copper you save is the seed from which your tree of wealth shall grow. The sooner you plant that seed, the sooner shall the tree grow, and the more faithfully you nourish and water that tree with consistent savings, the sooner may you bask in contentment beneath its shade. With that, Algamish left. I thought about his words for many days. It seemed too simple. It seemed almost foolish, and yet I decided to try it. Each time I was paid, I took 1 out of every 10 copper coins and hid it away. It was strange. I did not miss the money. I did not go hungry. I managed to get along without it. But soon the pile of copper began to grow, and for the first time in my life, I felt the weight of a purse that was not empty. It felt good. It felt like power. 12 months passed. Algamish returned to the Hall of Records. He asked me, Son, have you paid yourself not less than 1/10 of all you have earned for the past year? I answered proudly, Yes, master, I have. That is good, he said, beaming. And what have you done with it? I have given it to Asmor, the brickmaker, I told him. He told me he was traveling over the far seas, and in Tyre he would buy for me the rare jewels of the Phoenicians. When he returns, we shall sell these jewels at a high price and divide the earnings. Algamish's face fell. He threw up his hands in despair. You have learned to save, he shouted, but you have not learned to protect. Why would you trust the knowledge of a brickmaker about jewels? Would you go to the baker to inquire about the stars? No, by my tunic, you would go to the astrologer. You have lost your savings, my son. You have uprooted your wealth tree. Asmor will be cheated in Tyre, for he knows nothing of jewels. But do not give up. Start again. Plant another seed. And this time, if you would have advice about jewels, go to the jewel merchant. If you would know the truth about sheep, go to the herdsman. Advice is one thing that is freely given away, but watch that you take only what is worth having. And with that, he left again. Arkad looked at the faces of his friends. They were listening with rapt attention. Bansir, the chariot builder, leaned forward. And was the money lost? He asked. It was, Arkad nodded. Asmor was tricked. The jewels were bits of colored glass. My year of savings was gone. But I did not give up. I started again. I saved my 10th. And this time, when I had enough, I trusted it to the shield maker to buy bronze, and he paid me interest. That was the beginning, my friends. That was the secret. It was not luck. It was not the favor of the gods. It was a decision to pay myself first, a decision to keep a part of all I earned. The sun began to set outside the Hall of Learning, casting long shadows across the floor. Arkad stood up. You have asked me for my secret. I have given it to you. It is simple, but it is the foundation of all fortune. Go back to your homes. Look at your earnings. No matter how small they are, take 1/10 and hide it away. Do not touch it. It is your slave. It is your future. Start thy purse to fattening. This is the first step. If you can do this, come back to me and I will teach you the rest. Bansir and Kobbi stood up. They bowed low to their friend. For the first time in many years, they did not feel the heavy burden of hopelessness. They felt the lightness of a new beginning. They had a plan. They walked out into the cooling twilight of Babylon, their minds racing, their hands already reaching for the first copper coin that would not be spent but kept.
Part 2. The 7 Cures for a Lean Purse. The glory of Babylon endures. Through the ages, it has stood as the richest city in the world. Its treasures of gold and jewels were fabulous. One might think such wealth was a gift from the gods, or perhaps the result of conquering armies plundering foreign lands. But it was neither. The wealth of Babylon was the result of the wisdom of its people. They had learned how to become rich. But as time passed, a shadow fell over the golden city. King Sargon, the great ruler, returned from his wars to find his kingdom in trouble. He summoned his royal chancellor to the palace. "Why is there such poverty in the streets?" the king demanded. "We have built great irrigation canals, we have built the highest temples, and yet the people seem unable to support themselves. Where has all the gold gone that we spent on these great works?" The chancellor bowed low. "It has found its way into the possession of a few very rich men," he explained. "It filtered through the fingers of the majority as quickly as goat's milk through a strainer. Now the stream of gold has ceased to flow, and most of our people have nothing to show for their earnings." The king frowned. "Why should so few men be able to acquire all the gold?" "Because they know how," the chancellor replied. "One may not condemn a man for succeeding because he knows how. Neither may one with justice take away from a man what he has fairly earned, to give to men of less ability." "But why," the king asked, "should not all the people learn how to accumulate gold, and therefore become prosperous?" "It is possible, your majesty, but who shall teach them? Certainly not the priests, for they know not of making money." The king stroked his beard. "Who knows best how to become wealthy?" The chancellor smiled. "That is a question your majesty has already answered. Who has amassed the greatest fortune in Babylon?" "Arkad," said the king. "He is the richest man in Babylon. Bring him to me on the morrow." The following day, Arkad stood before the king. He was 70 years old, yet he stood straight and strong. "Arkad," said the king, "is it true that you are the richest man in Babylon?" "It is so reported, your majesty, and no man disputes it." "How did you become so?" "By taking advantage of opportunities available to every citizen of our good city," Arkad replied. The king leaned forward. "Babylon is in a bad way. The people do not know how to keep their gold. I wish for Babylon to be the wealthiest city in the world. Therefore, we must be a nation of wealthy citizens. Arkad, will you teach your secret? Will you teach it to a group of teachers who shall then teach others until we have trained every worthy soul in my domain?" Arkad bowed. "I am your humble servant. Whatever knowledge I possess, I will gladly give for the glory of my king. Let your chancellor arrange a class of 100 men, and I will teach them the 7 cures for a lean purse." And so it was done. In the great hall of learning, 100 chosen men gathered. They were artisans, merchants, soldiers, and laborers. They sat upon colorful rugs in a semicircle. Arkad stood before them, a simple clay tablet in his hand. An oil lamp flickered beside him, casting a warm glow on his weathered face. "Behold," Arkad began, his voice echoing the stone hall, "you have asked me how to cure the sickness of an empty purse. For 7 days I shall explain to you the 7 cures. Listen closely, for within these walls lies the secret of your freedom. The first cure: start thy purse to fattening." Arkad walked to the front row and pointed to a humble egg merchant. "My friend," he said, "if you take 10 eggs from your basket every morning and put them into a pot, and every evening you take out 9, what will happen?" The merchant blinked. "In time, the pot will overflow." "Why?" Arkad asked. "Because each day I put in 1 more egg than I take out." Arkad turned to the class.
This, my students, is the first cure. For every 10 coins you place within your purse, take out for use but 9. Your purse will start to fatten at once, and its increasing weight will feel good in your hand and bring satisfaction to your soul. Do not scoff at this because it is so simple. Truth is always simple. I, too, carried a lean purse and cursed it because there was not within to satisfy my desires. But when I began to take out only 9 parts of 10, I began to fatten. And strangely, I did not lack for money. I lived just as well on the 9 parts as I did on the 10. The second cure: control thy expenditures. A young man in the second row raised his hand. But Arkad, he protested, how can a man save 1/10 of all he earns when all that he earns is not enough for his necessary expenses? Arkad smiled gently. Yesterday, I asked how many of you carried lean purses. All of you raised your hands. Yet, do you all earn the same? Some earn much more than others. Some have large families to support. Yet all purses are equally lean. Understand this truth. That which we call our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our incomes, unless we protest to the contrary. Do not confuse your necessary expenses with your desires. You and your family have more desires than your earnings can gratify. Therefore, your earnings are spent to satisfy these desires as far as they will go, but still many remain unsatisfied. Take a clay tablet. Write down every item for which you desire to spend. Select those that are necessary and those that are possible within 9/10 of your income. Cross out the rest and consider them but a part of that great multitude of desires that must go unsatisfied. Budget thy expenses that thou mayest have coins to pay for thy necessities, to pay for thy enjoyments, and to gratify thy worthy desires without spending more than 9/10 of your earnings.
The third cure: make thy gold multiply. Arkad paced slowly before them. Behold, thy purse is fattening. You have disciplined yourself to leave 1/10 of all you earn. You have controlled your expenditures to protect your growing treasure, but gold in a purse is gratifying to own and satisfieth a miserly soul, but it earns nothing. The gold we may retain from our earnings is but the start. The earnings it will make shall build our fortunes. How then may we put our gold to work? My first investment was a failure, for I lost my savings, but my second was a success. I loaned my gold to Agar, the shield maker. He bought bronze, and with it he made shields, which he sold to the king's guard. He paid me back my gold with interest. Then I let the interest stay with the principal, and it too earned interest. And soon the children of my gold were earning, and the children's children were earning. Hear this. A man's wealth is not in the coins he carries in his purse. It is the income he buildeth, the golden stream that continually floweth into his purse, and keepeth it always bulging. Put each coin to labor, that it may reproduce its kind, even as the flocks of the field, and help bring to thee income, a stream of wealth that shall flow constantly into thy purse. The fourth cure: guard thy treasures from loss. Misfortune loves a shining mark, Arkad warned, his voice dropping low. Gold in a man's purse must be guarded with firmness, else it be lost. Before you entrust your treasure to any man, assure yourself of his ability to repay. Do not be misled by your own romantic desires to make wealth rapidly. I told you of my first investment. I entrusted my savings to a bricklayer named Asmer, who was traveling to distant seas to buy jewels. He was tricked and bought bits of glass. My treasure was lost. Learn from my folly. Guard thy treasure from loss by investing only where thy principal is safe, where it may be reclaimed if desirable, and where thou wilt not fail to collect a fair rental. Consult with wise men. Seek the advice of those experienced in the profitable handling of gold. Let their wisdom protect thy treasure from unsafe investments. The fifth cure: make of thy dwelling a profitable investment.
If a man setteth aside 9 parts of his earnings upon which to live and enjoy life, and if any part of this 9 parts can be turned into a profitable investment without detriment to his well-being, then so much faster will his treasures grow. Many men of Babylon raise their families in unseemly quarters. They pay high rent to landlords for rooms where their wives have no place to raise flowers, and their children have no place to play but in the dirty alleys. I say to you, own thy own home. It is not beyond the ability of any well-intentioned man to own his home. The king has stretched the walls of Babylon so that there is much land now unused and at a reasonable price. When a man owns his own house, his heart is glad, and he saves the money he would have paid the landlord. Thus, his gold remains in his purse to be used for other things. Therefore, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. The 6th cure: ensure a future income. The life of every man proceedeth from his childhood to his old age. This is the path of life, and no man may deviate from it unless the gods call him prematurely to the world beyond. Therefore do I say that it behooves a man to make preparations for a suitable income in the days to come, when he is no longer young, and to make preparations for his family should he be no longer with them to comfort and support them. You may buy houses or lands. If wisely chosen, they will remain permanent in value, and their earnings or their sale will provide well for thee. Or you may entrust a small sum to the moneylender and increase it regularly. The small payment made with regularity grows with compound interest. I tell you, a man may provide for his future if he but plans with wisdom. Provide in advance for the needs of thy growing age and the protection of thy family. The 7th cure: increase thy ability to earn. Arkad paused. He looked at the faces of the men, now filled with hope and determination. We come now to the last cure. This tells not of gold, but of the man himself. Once, a young man came to me to borrow money. I asked him why he needed it. He complained that his earnings were insufficient to pay his expenses. I explained to him that such a person is a poor customer for a moneylender. I asked him, "What do you do to increase your capacity to earn?" He replied, "I do all that I can. I have asked my master 6 times within 2 moons to increase my pay, but he will not." I smiled at his simplicity, but he possessed one vital requirement to increase his earnings. Within him was a strong desire to earn more. Desire must be simple and definite. General desires are but weak longings. For a man to wish to be rich is of little purpose, but for a man to desire 5 pieces of gold is a tangible desire which he can press to fulfillment. And when he has backed his desire for 5 pieces of gold with strength of purpose to secure it, he will then find a way to secure 10 pieces, and then 20, and then 1,000. But more than this, a man must learn. If he is an artisan, he may learn the methods and tools of those more skillful in the same line. If he laboreth at the law or at healing, he may consult and exchange knowledge with others of his calling. Always do the affairs of man change and improve, because keen-minded men seek greater skill, that they may serve better those upon whose patronage they depend. Therefore, I urge all men to be in the front rank of progress, and not to stand still, lest they be left behind. Cultivate thy own powers, to study and become wiser, to become more skillful, to so act as to respect thyself. Arkad stepped back. The oil lamp flickered low. These, my students, are the 7 cures for a lean purse. There is more gold in Babylon than you can dream of. There is abundance for all. Go forth and practice these truths that you may prosper and grow wealthy. And go forth and teach these truths to every honest son of this city, that they may share in the glory of Babylon. The class arose as one. They bowed to the master. And as they walked out into the bright sunlight, they carried with them not gold, but something far more valuable. They carried the map to the treasure.
Part 3. The 5 Laws of Gold. The walls of Babylon were not merely stone and mortar.
They were a testament to the endurance of wisdom. Inside those walls, Arkad had grown old. The hair that was once black was now white as the winter's snow, but his mind remained as sharp as a freshly honed dagger. The time had come for Arkad to consider the future of his vast estate. By the laws of the land, his fortune would pass to his son, Dabasir. But Arkad was a prudent man. He knew that wealth unearned is often wealth lost. A man who does not know the weight of gold will soon find his hands empty, no matter how much is poured into them. And so, Arkad summoned Dabasir to the great hall. The young man stood before his father, eager and proud. He expected to receive his inheritance that very day. "My son," Arkad began, his voice grave, "I desire that you succeed to my estate, but first you must prove that you are capable of handling it. Therefore, I will not give it to you yet. Instead, I will send you out into the world to test your mettle." Dabasir straightened his back. "I am ready, father." Arkad nodded. "I give you 2 gifts. The first is a bag of gold. If used wisely, it will be the basis of your future success. If used foolishly, it will be your ruin." He handed the heavy weather sack to his son. Dabasir took it, his eyes gleaming at the weight of it. "The second gift," Arkad continued, lifting a clay tablet, "is this. On this clay is carved the 5 laws of gold. If you read them and follow them, you will possess a wisdom that is far more valuable than the gold in your hand. In 10 years, you shall return to this house and give an account of yourself. If you have proven worthy, I will make you my heir. If not, I will give my wealth to the priests, that they may pray for my soul, for you shall receive nothing." Dabasir took the tablet, but he barely glanced at it. He was too captivated by the gold. He shoved the tablet into his travel pouch, bowed to his father, and set out for the distant city of Nineveh. He rode out of the gates of Babylon feeling like a king. He had gold, he had youth, he had freedom. He did not think he needed old men's rules written on clay. But the world is a cruel teacher to those who are unprepared. When Dabasir arrived in Nineveh, he was immediately spotted. A man with a heavy purse and a light mind is a beacon to every scoundrel in the city. 2 friendly men approached him at the marketplace. They bought him wine. They flattered him. They told him of a magnificent opportunity. They spoke of a merchant who had a horse so fast it had never been beaten. They told Dabasir that if he bet his gold on this horse, he would double his fortune by sunset. Dabasir, blinded by greed and the desire for easy riches, bet the gold. The race was run. The horse lost. It had been a trick. The horse was lame and the men were partners in the scam. Dabasir was shaken, but he still had some gold left. He resolved to be smarter. He would not gamble. He would invest in business. Another friend, a young man named Popin, approached him. Popin had a plan. He knew a merchant who had died, leaving behind a shop full of valuable cloth. If they bought the shop now, they could sell the cloth for a massive profit. It sounded sensible. It sounded like business. Dabasir invested the remainder of his gold, but he knew nothing of cloth, and neither did Popin. The cloth was rotten. No one would buy it. They could not pay the rent on the shop. In the end, they sold the cloth for scraps just to buy food. Within 1 year, the son of the richest man in Babylon was penniless. He had sold his horses, he had sold his fine robes, he was wearing rags and sleeping in the dust of the streets. He was hungry, he was ashamed. One night, as he sat shivering in the cold, he remembered the second gift, the clay tablet. He had carried it with him all this time, wrapped in a cloth, forgotten. He pulled it out. By the light of a dying fire, he began to read the words his father had carved. The first law of gold. Gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Dabasir wept. If only he had saved. Even when he was losing money, if he had kept the 10th, he would still have a seed. The second law of gold. Gold laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise owner, who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. He thought of the horse race. He had not sought profitable employment for his gold. He had sought magic. He wanted the gold to multiply without labor. The third law of gold: gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. He thought of his friends. Were they wise in the handling of money? No, they were gamblers and dreamers. He should have asked a merchant. He should have asked a moneylender. The fourth law of gold: gold slippeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. The cloth business. He knew nothing of cloth. He had invested in the unfamiliar, and the gold had slipped away like water through open fingers. The fifth law of gold: gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who followeth the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience and romantic desires in investment. Impossible earnings. That was the key. He had wanted to get rich quick. He had been romantic, not realistic. Dabasir sat in the silence of the night. The gold was gone, but the wisdom remained. He realized that the clay tablet was indeed more valuable than the bag. The bag was temporary. The tablet was eternal. The next morning, Dabasir stood up. He was no longer the arrogant son of a rich man. He was a humble student of the laws. He found work. It was hard work, managing a crew of slaves, building a new city wall. It was dusty and hot, but when he received his first copper coin, he did not spend it on wine. He saved 1/10. It took time. It was slow. He worked for months until he had saved a few pieces of silver. Then he remembered the third law. He sought the advice of men wise in its handling. He met a man who traded in bronze for the gates of the city. The man was old and cautious. Dabasir invested his small savings with him. The man used the silver to buy bronze, brought it to the city, sold it, and returned Dabasir his silver with a small profit. Dabasir did not spend the profit. He let it work. He remembered the second law: gold labors diligently. Year after year passed. Dabasir worked. He saved. He invested cautiously. He avoided schemes. He avoided things he did not understand. Slowly, the small bag of silver became a bag of gold, then 2 bags, then 3. The laws were working. They were as true as the law of gravity. If you dropped a stone, it fell. If you followed the laws of gold, wealth accumulated. 10 years passed. The day of reckoning arrived. In the great hall of Arkad's house in Babylon, a feast was prepared. Arkad sat at the head of the table. He was very old now, frail and waiting. His wife sat beside him. Dabasir entered. He was no longer the soft boy who had left. He was a man. His skin was darkened by the sun. His hands were strong. He walked with the confidence of one who has faced the world and won. He bowed to his father. "Father," he said, 10 years ago you gave me a bag of gold and a clay tablet." Arkad nodded. "It is so." "You gave me the gold," Dabasir continued, "and I lost it. I was foolish. I was inexperienced. I let it slip through my fingers like sand." Arkad's wife gasped. She looked at her son with pity, but Arkad remained silent. He watched his son's eyes. "But," Dabasir said, his voice rising, "you also gave me the tablet, and in my hour of deepest despair, I read your words. I learned the 5 laws of gold, and I applied them." He signaled to his servants. They marched into the hall. One by one, they placed heavy leather sacks upon the table. 1, 2, 3, 4 sacks of heavy gold. "Father," Dabasir said, "in this first sack is the gold you gave me, returned to you. In these other 3 sacks is the interest I have earned by following your wisdom." He picked up the clay tablet, which was now worn and smooth from being carried for 10 years. "I tell you now, Father, in the presence of all these witnesses, the gold you gave me was a fine gift, but this tablet was the treasure. Without the wisdom, the gold was quickly lost, but with the wisdom, the gold was earned back 1,000 times over." Arkad stood up. Tears filled his old eyes. He opened his arms and embraced his son.
"You have learned the lesson," he whispered. "You have faced the fire and come out as tempered steel. My wealth is safe in your hands. My estate is yours." He turned to the guests at the feast. "Hear this," he declared. "Misfortune pursues the man who thinks more of borrowing than of repaying, but gold serves the man who honors the laws of its keeping. The 5 laws are not magic, they are the rules of the universe. The first law, gold comes to he who saves. The second law, gold works for he who invests. The third law, gold stays with he who is cautious. The fourth law, gold is lost by he who is arrogant. The fifth law, gold vanishes from he who is greedy." Dabasir sat down at his father's right hand. The feast began, the music played, and outside the great walls of Babylon stood silent and strong, guarding the city, just as the laws guarded the wealth of those wise enough to follow them.